Yeah, so where we have blood group AB, but remember why the main focus is antibody titers on blood group O donor. Yeah. Yes. So now, moving swiftly to our machine here, as you had said, the IgM assays will use the untreated barcoded plates, the one that we use for blood grouping, and the reagents that will be used are just those microplates and the reference cells, A1 and AB, A1, A2 if you have. Immucor provides also for A2, but for us in Kenya we have reference A1 cells and reference B cells. So either A1, A2 and B cells, depending if you are doing anti-A and titer, then you will have to use the anti-A reference cells. So it's according to whatever you are doing. For the IgG assays, you will have to have the reference cells A1, A2 and B, depending on whatever you are doing. Then you will have to have the capture R indicator cells, and then you are going to have capture Lis and capture R select plates. The only thing is that because of the amount of dilution that this one does, this uses slightly more volume of the reagents than the ABO, than the blood grouping. So it will use a higher volume of the blood of the reagents. And so we said the IgG one, you are going to just use the capture R select. So the capture plate is capture R select. And so maybe I dwell kidogo on this, the low, sorry. Barcoded plates, the one that we use for blood grouping. Yes, 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 the untreated plates. Select. Yes, yes. Yes. And so now maybe the discussion on the low titer and the high titer, which you have said probably for you will not need to go to the high titer, because what there is that if you have this A12, which means this is one sample, A12 straight will do one sample, either on the capture select or on the ABO blood microplates. So for the low titer, it means that you are going to only use the solution. The dilution will be up to from 1:1 to 1:128 for all of them, for both IgM and IgG. So it will run from 1:1 to 1:8. For example, if you agree that your cutoff is 64, and for example your ABO titer goes above 128, because if it goes above 128, it will indicate that it is 128, and if it comes to 128, then that's when you move to the high titer. Are you together? So you move to the high titer. So if you agree that your cutoff will be 64 and it goes beyond 128, then it means that you may not need to go to the high titer. That one, you cannot use that blood or that donor for transfusion. So that's why probably for you, you will not need to go to the high titer. So low titer IgM, anti-A, anti-B, low titer IgG, anti-A, and anti-B. So that's the reason why. That's why we have this dilution. If you can see here, 1:128 and 1:128 for both of them. For the high titer, the reason why you will not have to move to all that, to that level, is that it goes from 1:16. Remember, the other one is from 1:1. The other one, the high titer, will be from 1:16. This is where now the titer is too high and you want maybe to see exactly what it is. Probably there's no other option for any other donor, and so you want to go a step further to know exactly what is the titer and probably treat that platelets or that blood so that it can have a reduced titer. So there's maybe some treatments that are done on that blood, if at all there's no other way. if there is no other blood to use for transfusion. So yeah, so for up to 4096, then you may not need to go all that way. And so we have talked about the cutoffs, and I think we have talked about the different literature. The reason why we need to do that titer is because of the adverse effects, especially in organ transplantation, transplant, or like in cases of platelet transfusion, even the apheresis platelets. For example, some of the reactions and adverse effects could be the hemoglobinemia and jaundice, progressive anemia, spontaneous coagulation, the activation where you have now a positive DAT to a person who did not have maybe before, the increased osmotic fragility of patients' RBCs. And so our conclusion is that this one is now, you have to find a cutoff for you, of course dependent on the literature available, and then the transfusion service personnel, who are us, the users of the machine, and clinicians should be aware of the potential risks, and they should always be alert and vigilant when it comes to ABO incompatible platelet transfusion. And so the concept of compatibility encompasses more than the major technique cross-matching. So this is a more specialized thing or procedures, especially for the platelet transfusion, and could be also good for you before you, I know probably you are in the process of getting the more sophisticated equipment for the HLA for the organ transplant, but this one could at least help in the meantime, the ABO titers. So unless we have a question, probably we can try to demonstrate on the same. Of course, the IgG, probably what I can try to quickly go through is the process so that you can understand. Though just for your information, but it's only that now the machine will do everything. So you don't have to cram or understand those processes. So now for the IgM, this is what it does. The machine will pick the plate, the Galileo plate, and then it will add the PBS, around 50 microliters to else. Remember, this procedure will use a bit higher volumes of the reagents than most of the other because of the serial dilution it will need. So maybe if you're going to have more frequent ones, you need to increase your order for reference cells and capture indicator cells. So 50 microliters in the very first wells, or to the wells, and then it adds the plasma 100 microliters again to the first well of each sample. By each sample we mean every strip uses one sample, and then it will do the serial dilution automatically using its pipetters and titrates the plasma to other wells, and then it will add the 15 microliters of the 3 to 5% cell suspension of the either A1 cells if it is doing antibody A, or B cells if it is using if you're doing B anti-B. And so remember, this cell suspension will be made by the specimen diluent. So, and then it will incubate, then it will centrifuge, and then you will find your results. The camera will read and you will find your interpretation, just like you find cross match, that you don't really need to it just gives you compatible or incompatible. This one it will just give you the final reading. Is it 64? Yes. Is it 2? Yes. Yeah. Is it 4? Yes. The final reading. So now the for the platelets, not for the platelets, for the IgG select plates, it will use the capture select plates, and then it will add the 50 microliters of PBS to the selected wells, meaning that whole strip, and then it will add 20 microliters of 3 to 5% reference cells. So it will make itself for its own cell suspension, again according to whatever antibody you are doing. Then it will centrifuge to allow, remember the capture technology, you have to make a monolayer on the plates. Yeah, so that is the point, that you are going to make a monolayer, and then it will go to the washer and it washes twice. Remember, just like manually you can do the washing to remove the unbound RBCs that you have added. And then it will go to, you will add the 50 microliters PBS and 100 microliters again to the first position or to the first well, and then it will now start doing the serial dilution or the titration, and then it will add 1,000 microliters of Lis. So that is 1 ml, which is a bit too high, higher than the ordinary tests, and this will act as a reaction potentiator or enhancer. Then it will incubate at 39 degrees. The other one, it is incubating at room temperature. This one is at 39. And then it again will wash to remove the unbound antibodies. And then it will add the indicator cells, 55 microliters, centrifuge, and then you get the final result. But you don't have to understand all this. You just, because the machine does the whole thing. Remember, these machines, just what they do is that they do anything that you do manually. Now they automate. If you centrifuge, it automates the centrifugation. So now, just the normal way we do our running of the tests. You go to the running man. You load your samples. And then you go to whatever kind of. So now this one, as you can see, we have the HT IgG A1, HT IgG-B, LT IgM A1, LT IgM B, LT IgG A1, and all that. So this is what we are talking about, being high titer IgG anti-A1, yeah, and then high titer and IgG anti-B, then low titer for the LT, low titer IgM anti-A, the same thing for anti-B, and the same thing for IgG A1 LT low titer,